Then the age dropped. I was like, oh, hold up. This changes everything. At your how old? I'm like, listen, I have a few questions. So you're not married? No. You've not previously married? No. You're not divorced? No. You have no children? No. What's wrong with you? I remember the first date we had it at Kengele's, Lavington.
Yeah.
But to me, it wasn't a date because who takes someone to a bar for a date, right? So me, I showed up.
A guy interested in insurance.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So me, I check in and I'm like, we're just meeting to have a drink.
Yeah.
Because really, it's a drink. And I remember that day I took him through the ringer with questions.
Hey.
I left
About
I held
insurance?
nothing. No.
So at this point, are you aware it's a date?
No. He just like, hey, are you available for drinks on this day at Kengele? I'm like, yeah, actually, there's nothing I'm doing. See, I'd have had a drink anyway or I'd have gone to have a meal anyway. So I went.
So why are you grilling him?
Yeah, why are you grilling
he
him?
asked He started suggesting or having conversations that were opening his life up.
Oh.
And so I'm like, oh, okay, if we are talking, I can ask questions,
Yeah.
right? And so at this point, she's like, oh, yeah, I just relocated. Okay. Then the age dropped. I was like, oh, hold up. This changes everything. At your how old? I'm like, listen, I have a few questions. So you're not married? No. You've not previously married? No. You're not divorced? No. You have no children? No. What's wrong with you? And the
What are
conversation,
you
like,
doing?
I grilled the guy.
Yeah.
I was like, no. You cannot tell me as a man
Yeah.
of your age, you've not met
Done
chicks
any
who
of
are not
this.
marriable.
Yeah.
Okay,
By now.
because they're good chicks in this, whatever it is in this world. So what is your problem?
Guy.
Dude was sweating. I think he'd never been grilled like that in his life.
Yeah.
But then it was like a grilling session. At some point when we were done,
Yeah.
I think when we took a pause, he was like, let me use the washroom. I was sure he was not coming back.
Yeah.
I was sure he was not coming back. He came back. I was like, this guy is a sucker for
Points.
punishment. So he came back and turned
Yeah.
the tables and asked the same hard questions. And so literally on our first
Drink
meetup,
up.
we actually put everything on the
that's a
table
summit.
and poured out. I remember going to meet up with my girls and they were like, who does that?
Yeah.
Who
Like if
does
this
that?
guy even wanted you right now, you are too forward.
Yeah.
This thing is not going to go anywhere. You asked him all this, they were just like, Jesus, who raised you? Who asks these questions?
Yeah.
I was like, but what are we hiding? See, people are adults.
Yeah.
If he wants, he had the choice to say, I don't feel like answering the questions. And I had the choice to say, but
I'm not
we all answered.
Yeah.
So I guess we handled all the things that could potentially be uncomfortables on the first meetup and not in a space where we're actually looking to date each other.
Yeah.
And so the conversations after that became much easier because we'd already had the hard convos, right? And we'd opened up the stage for anybody can ask any question at any time.
Yeah.
Why?
And so we did have those and we met up. But it was so interesting because it felt to me like it was such a long time. And he didn't say or declare what he intended.
Yeah.
What felt to me like a long time. Now, when I give you the time frame, you laugh at me to no end. Because
3 weeks.
literally we met in October. And by end of October, I was stressed. This whole, he's not declaring was end of October.
End of boy.
Yeah. And I'm like, he's not saying what he wants. So me, I'm opening up the field.
You're going back out there.
Back to this.
So within, I think he
Sava.
could sense it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And within mid-November, remember,
Yeah.
me, I was already at if this guy does not declare what he wants in a month,
Moving
me,
on.
I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I'm a hot potato. Okay? Me, I'm spring chicken. I can go anytime. Right? I'm not going to waste my time here. We're not going to waste time. So I remember within a month and a half now, I think he started noticing
The restlessness.
I'm losing the audience.
Yeah.
And so finally he's like, I think one time he cooked me dinner and it's on the only time he's never cooked for me ever since.
Kai.
Imagine, hadi wa leo. Anyway, he invites me for dinner and he's like, okay. So I did. He's like, okay, so now, you know, and somewhere along the lines, I think he could just see me. I was just there to have, I'm like, see, I
To
did
eat.
anyway.
Yeah.
So I came and I was like, if you didn't declare today,
It's
it's
a
a
wrap.
wrap. We're moving on.
Yeah.
I'm not wasting my time. And I remember he sat down and at that day he just mentioned, he did, you know, I like you, right? And I was like, you do?
Sorry?
Because realistically, I'm seeing nothing that you have shown me that says, I have not seen you looking at me in any way that suggests that you think I'm hot.
Yeah.
And men out here, by the way, look at me in a certain,
By the way.
I was like, you've not stated anything. You've not, you call me, we just have basic discussions.
Yeah.
So I really don't understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Because if you really like me, then you're Aki. And this was the illustration I did. I did a small or whatever. I was like, you're moving at a snail's pace.
Hi. Poor boy child.
Anyway, it was on that night that he
Yes.
was like, no,
Yeah,
genuinely,
I
I
could
do.
feel.
And in fact, even, will you be my girlfriend? But they had he not asked me that
That.
day, I was just walking from there with block, goodbye, time wasters. And I guess from there, it was now a year later that we dated, and we really had a blast. Akisi, we traveled. We had a blast that 1 year. Then we got pregnant the next October.
Where?
And it now pushed things from, it was so now.
Now, what do you want?
What do you want? Are we in this? And so if you listened to the episode we had, so you can go back and now enter into
Now there's context.
Yes.
how the context of me, I'm good with raising this baby on my
By
own. And what,
myself.
so let's not do this because of X, Y, and Z. So please go back and listen to that episode to now understand how we moved on from there. So we did, and we then got married. It was October. We then planned our wedding the next December after the baby had come. So we did the traditional things and whatever. So the things for me that made me date him for that 1 year, beyond the I will you be my girlfriend, and was already for me in those checks. I think within that first month, I had already seen all the checks for me, other than the high priest, because nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
All the other marks he checked. I remember even my list that we had done was so specific. I was like, and Lord, if this guy does not like chapos, I'll know he's also the one. As in, it was actually there in the list of things. Yeah.
And he doesn't like chapos.
It was me, I was like, who's going to be kandang chapos for this guy?
Yeah.
And so, that was how
Yeah.
I met my husband.
So do you think he's the one? Both you, Beth, and do you think your husbands are the one? What is your philosophy on the one?
Yeah. I think I'm like you, because you had mentioned earlier that you don't think the one necessarily exists. But I think that the one that you find that has the potential is really important, because there's things that you find out about somebody and you're like, this I can live with. Like this we can make it work. I can see that there's seeds here that if we water them, they're going to grow and we're going to have something amazing. So I saw that potential. And then now that those seeds have flowered and they're fruited, because we have 3 fruits, like I feel like now he is, in the sense that that all of that came to fruition. So I wouldn't say that at the beginning that there was no one else in the entire world for me, but the fact that we saw that potential and then worked at it, did something about it, worked at it. Now what we have is incredible. So I think he's now the one. I wouldn't. I think that's it. Yeah.
I would say I'm glad I chose this one. I think that's what, for me, that's what I would say. Because honestly, I feel like the things that I saw in him, I still see. And in a bigger, I think they always say when you get married, whatever it is that is there in this person will be 10 times more. It will be amplified in my end. It's in the good and the bad. And so for me, I feel like the cause are still so, in fact, now they're just growing and growing and growing. And it just makes you fall deeper and deeper in love with this person. So, and the negatives also in terms of the things that piss you off 10 times as much.
The socks.
But I feel like for me, the thing that makes me want to keep choosing him, to keep choosing him as my one, is the fact that even as we work through all these things, there's so many things to work through in marriage, so many conflict points you're going to have, so many, it's like a jungle in there. The things for me, I was clear I didn't want to do and I didn't want to put my partner through was I'd never want him to wonder where I am, what I'm doing, or if he can trust me with his heart. And I don't want to be at who are you texting, and I've not had that, and I pray it continues that way. You know, I've never. His accountability is on another level. You'll know where he is, how he is, what he's doing at what time, and we both operate on that way because that's our core.
Yeah.
It's not because it's a requirement. So it's just those things that even when you're fighting, even if you listened to the parenting the parenting episode, it's fired up, and at the times, I mean, it does sound conflict, but the truth of the matter is, this human you're doing life with, this person you're doing life with, that you've chosen each other with, you're still batting on the same team. You know, it's not, you're not on the other side of the fence. And so even as you conflict, you both know you're conflicting on the same side of the fence, and that's a whole game changer.
It's a whole, it's very
It makes, and I remember even the times when we have like epic fights, he does have moments where he stops and says, I need you to understand that we're on the same team, and I need you to trust me that even though we're in conflict, we're still on the same team. That in itself just
Hey, that's key.
it's an equalizer. It just stops you where you are and it numbs you dead in your tracks, you know.
And it makes that conversation meaningful as well, because if you're conflicting, it's to solve a problem so you can move forward, rather than I just need to get my way or I just need to be heard. Yeah, it's a game changer when you realize that you're both on the same side.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's easy,
No.
but at least there are things you don't have to be worried about.
But I also, while I agree with the sentiments, I also know that there's moments when you're having doubts about whether this person is really.
It's true,
Even though there's not the one, you also doubt if this is the one. At the same time,
even them, there are times where they're just like, this chick be looking crazy. Am I sure I made the right?
Yeah,
you're right. It doesn't
it doesn't negate the fact that you have your questions. Sometimes you're like, I don't know if I've made the best choice in a partner, especially when you're having one of those prolonged battles of wills. And
that make you look at each other different. Like, oh my gosh, that's how you think.
I don't know that there's any time that you've in a marriage that you won't have moments where you feel like, if I just packed up and I went and just moved with my children,
I'll be fine.
So I can be fine.
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
nobody. It is a normal thing to go through.
Yeah.
It's normal.
But
even when you have the right person.
Yeah, and but you know, it's also hard to admit that sometimes you're having these doubts that you're like, maybe if that other guy had asked me before this one, it would have been different, right? Of course, it's not a conversation you can have with your spouse, and because again, you don't ever want them to feel threatened that you're the kind of person who will just, when it's uncomfortable, you up and leave. But you know, I've asked him. I've had that conversation with him and asked him, do you think you made a good choice? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. You know, and you know, the thing is, I like how clear our guys are about the choices they made. And that's why just like, I don't understand how this dude chose me. Because if he was serious, there are other very useful people out here. I don't see how he's still here. So I've had to evaluate for myself because that's my own personal insecurity that I'm dealing with, right? And I've kept asking him, like, are you sure you made... Are you sure you made the right choice? And he's like, me, I'm not leaving. If there's anyone who wants to leave, you can go.
Yeah, it's true.
But
by the way,
me, I'm here.
There's a clarity sometimes that men have
that you just appreciate.
You're just like, oh, I'm glad you have that for us.
Because me, if it was up to me,
I've fled the scene.
Yeah, but
I have fled.
Again, we tend to be super critical on ourselves. And sometimes it even mirrors into our husbands.
Yeah.
Because and I can understand that this is part of the seasons of how much change happens within that time of I do to where we are at right now. There's so many things that change for you as a woman. You still, I think you begin to question yourself, the things you loved, you've lost yourself so much that I think in that doubt, you wonder whether, is he seeing all these things I'm going through and is it raising, are the imperfections obvious?
Yeah.
And it's in those moments that you begin to doubt and you even begin to fight the person unknowingly, and the fights are sprouting from strange things, but really it's that you're having a battle internally with yourself also.
And you're a different person. Like I heard a statement somebody said that when you marry somebody, you're marrying 7 different people because in their entire lifetime they're going to have almost a personality overhaul almost 7 times. I don't know if it's factual or not.
Yeah.
But I can say for certain that there are some core things that are still me from then, but there's also some really fundamental things about me that have changed. So our relationship has also had to evolve in that we are now relating as different people. We are not relating as the same way that we related 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So that was also part of it. Like now, this new person that I am, we now have to have a new relationship again. So that's another checkpoint where you're like, okay, so now that I am me now that this is who I am now,
Are we still?
Are you still?
Yeah.
Am I still?
And even them, I mean, there's changes both ways.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
changes both ways. So you have to keep reevaluating there. And I think that's the real importance of constantly dating each other.
Yeah.
And constantly having people who can keep you up. I mean, I'm always of the counseling does not end at the premarital. It has to be throughout your marriage. You have to constantly work through your marriage with a neutral party that helps you stay grounded when things are beginning to fly off the handle. But now I guess the other question is, but then is marriage for everybody? Because I know, but yeah, it's true. Let's listen to But why do you think so?
No, I don't actually think marriage is for everybody. It's a choice.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
And it's work.
And it's
work.
work.
Yeah. It's true.
So if you're going to do it, you need to be clear as to what your objective is. So I tend to be very analytical and practical when I think about marriage. So I think about our family as a company. And at the end of each year, we need to end in profit side, not in loss. So that means every person in this family has to be doing something to ensure that we're ending on the profit, on the profit side. So that is labor, right?
It's true.
And I know that sounds, people don't like to hear that you
It's
have
not
to put in.
romantic.
It's not romantic.
Yeah.
And a lot of marriage is not romantic. It's intense work. And a lot of that work goes unseen. It's not necessarily rewarded in the way that you think it should be. So you find yourself, that's when people start saying they're feeling disconnected from their spouse. And part of it is because you are not laboring to the same degree that you had when you are romantic initially, right? So if you're going to choose marriage, it's something you have to choose regularly. You have to look at your spouse and like, today I'm staying.
I'm choosing you again today.
I'm choosing, despite I don't know about tomorrow.
Yes. Today.
But today.
In this moment.
In this moment. And that was something that I had to grow into because me, I'm the hopeless romantic.
Where you think everything should be
it should be rosy.
daily.
He should be running my bath water.
The sex needs to be fire throughout.
Fire.
If it's not, it's done.
Yeah.
If, you know,
and he should be inside your mind, understanding everything
that happens.
without me having to say
To
it. You
communicate.
should want to help me wash the dishes. I don't have to ask you.
You should want everything
to.
that I want.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So having to shed that unrealistic, because that's not true of any relationship, even with your best friend.
True.
it's true. You
Yeah,
have to put
even
in the work.
Yeah. So why don't you do it with your spouse?
Yeah.
Right? So that has had to be something that I have to be conscious about and say you have to show up as an adult.
Oh yeah, it's true.
Because me, I also do tantrums.
It's
Spectacular ones.
Yeah.
Given the opportunity, I can be a child. And he calls me out on this childish behavior. And I'm like, but who is older? So can I remind you of the hierarchy? Even though I don't behave my age. So you have to show up as an adult in every situation and keep reminding yourself what is the reason or the purpose for this marriage. So unless you're willing to do that, you're going to have a really difficult time of marriage because it is not any of the things that you see on TV. It's not hopelessly in love. It's, in fact, I can tell you the last time I told him I loved him, like I vocalized it. It's a hot minute. I mean, I think he knows.
Yeah,
But you see that effort of like, you, by the way, I kind of love you.
Yeah.
Because with the kids, I say it day and night, 3 times an hour.
Yeah.
I love you, my babies.
I know, but
I
and
love
yet you would,
And yet the man with whom I had these babies, I'm
Yes.
like, Nyaje, you're good, eh?
it's like you want some chapos.
There's chicken.
Yeah.
You know.
So you know.
Yeah.
So you know.
So I think, I guess this is to say, all this to say, if you're getting into marriage, I think get into it for the right reasons. And it's not for everybody because if you feel, and yeah, this is a lot of work,
It
then
is.
don't.
Yeah.
You don't have to. It's
Yeah.
not a must, a must.
And it maybe is worse even when you think about now adding kids, for example.
Yeah.
So if you're in a relationship with somebody with whom you're not friends, you're not partners, you're constantly in strife, it that's the model that you're setting for your kids as well. That's what you're teaching them, that a relationship is, that love is. So why would you want to model that for them at the end of the day? There's sticking it out because you're trying to make it work and you're working at it.
Yeah.
But there's also a point of like, this is no longer meaningful. It no longer makes
I'm
sense.
staying for the children.
Yeah.
They end up being collateral damage, honestly. Yeah, there's nothing like that. And let's be honest, when you say you're staying for the children, honestly, in most times, there's a part of you that doesn't want to leave, that maybe is not accepting the failure. Because if it's those children, if you asked them, they'd probably tell you something different, you know. Then I think the other thing is sometimes and I've seen this, where sometimes you wait so long that you get to that point where you're just like, is this ever going to happen for me? Yeah, like you long for a marriage, you're a good human being, you look for. But then I've also found that there are people who get to a point where they have waited so long that their bar is so low that you're just gonna, anything that passes because the taxi light is on, you'll board it, And at that point, I feel in that way, men have a bit of an advantage.
They always will.
Where a man can live and have 3 marriages or have none and get married at 60, get a spring chicken babe, get young chicks, and life goes on. But for Chiles, I know there's also the biological clock thing that, you feel like, realistically, you can't, past a certain point, you're now getting into the danger zone of being able to get children. And I know a lot of times we'll press the panic button. And I guess that's the point where you also want to ask yourself, are you looking for a marriage or are you looking for a baby daddy? Because and then start working on the criteria for your donor. Honestly, is it going to be a tube? Is it going to be a real human being?
Yeah.
And even in those spaces, then be careful which person. You also need to have your own criteria of who it is, because you don't just want to go and get a child with a guy and then later on this person is still going to be in your life one way or another because of this child. Or will have access to you in and out. Be careful of the garbage you let into your life. It's true.
That is so harsh. But I mean, to your point, for me, and this might surprise you because I think I'm the most liberal.
Miss Hippie.
Yeah, I'm the hippiest of all of us, right? But lately, how I see it is, it's going to be controversial, but I think the best setting for children is in a family of 2 parents. I'm going to say it out loud. And I've had the experience of growing up in a single family. I know what that is like. It is not great. My mother did the best that she could, and she still does. And she's the absolute best parent that I've ever had. I would not substitute her for anything. But I know what I missed in not having a father in my house constantly. So I still believe strongly, and right now it's the hill that I'll die on. If you want to have children, the absolute best way to have them is with a partner, because there's so many benefits that offers. And I know as empowered, strong, financially capable women, we kind of don't see the value of men so much in child raising and child rearing. But there's so many things that a man brings into parenting that you can't do as a woman. And because now we discount it, we think, but the kid it's all set. My kid is happy and well. But you can see the difference. And I can see the difference for you having been raised in 2-parent families. I see it. You might not see it, but as an outsider, I see it clearly. I see what it did for you as women who are strong and empowered and capable. But it is because your fathers were present in their own way. They didn't do it the way your mother did it, but they did it as the men. And it had a very interesting impact, even in the way that you chose your partners.
True. Yeah, I always say I married my father.
Yeah, so there's either you marry your father or you're fleeing from your father.
But the father
is still there. So on my end, I was running away from a guy who was my father. A guy who reminded me of my father. I was fleeing that scene. And yet if I'd had a different father, I would have looked precisely for that man. So I believe strongly that having children is really it's not about you. You have to remove yourself from the equation. Even when you're going through a very difficult time in your marriage and you have children, you have to consider the children in a different way than you consider yourselves. So that also helps decide how you handle whether the marriage breaks up or it survives.
How much work you'll put in.
How much work and effort is required. So even if you split up in your marriage and you have children, the children still remain the primary. It stops being about you, even though you think, but he cheated on me or she did this, and put that aside and prioritize the children, because the impact for the children lasts much longer than adults are willing to admit or are willing to see. So I am 46. I carry some elements of my parents' failed marriage. And even when I've had fights with my husband, I keep bringing back my parents' failure, and I'm like, this is how it started with my folks, and this is where it is leading. So now I start getting into a defensive mode, and my husband has had to tell me, I'm not your dad. I am not that guy. And I've had to be like, Enyewe,
It's true.
it's true, but I carry elements of that because it hurt me more than my parents know. And I know it's a conversation that is difficult to have, especially when a woman is having to make a difficult choice of ending a marriage, because most of the marriage ending is initiated by women. It's not an easy thing, but the consequence, the blowback, it runs much deeper than we are willing to have that conversation.
I
So
think that's in the ideal scenario.
yes,
That if it's possible, and I would say for me, I would add the caveat of if it is a healthy relationship.
yeah,
If we're talking about you're on the same side, this person has good principles and everything. But honestly speaking, I would say if this person doesn't, you have all the more reason.
Yes,
to leave,
absolutely.
because those things will also carry into your
Absolutely,
into
yeah,
your
and I'm-
children. And another thing is, if you do choose to separate,
Yes.
if you're in a marriage and you have to go your separate ways, don't use the children as
collateral.
collateral
Yeah.
for your arguments or
Yeah.
your domains or your.
Exactly.
If he's a good human being
Yes.
and you're a good human being, separate the two matters. There's a drama between the two of you that is now has ended. Now, I wonder whether there's something that can allow for like if I think it's an opportunity, and if it exists, please reach out to us. If this whatever's exist, if these programs exist, we can plug our listeners. If there's anything that can help co-parenting situations, or co-parents to be able to go into a program, a parenting program that helps them to be able to parent well as co-parents from different homes.
Yeah.
Because I feel there's seesawing the kids between, or penduluming them between the two spaces where everybody's trying to outdo each other to look like the better parent also harms these kids.
Yeah.
So if there's a way that you can healthily raise your children from two different homes,
Yeah.
if that's how it's worked out, that's fine. But if you have had the unfortunate whatever that you've not been able to have the ideal scenario of having a husband, or having had and lost, that you didn't have one anyway,
yeah.
I would say there's also ways you can also get strong men to be active in your lives.
Yeah.
It can be your dad, who might be fantastic. It can be your brother, who's fantastic. And also be careful to vet, because sometimes we trust the people closest to us, and they can also be abusers to our
We can
children.
also be blind to,
yeah,
Yeah.
that you
What
can be
is-
so blind to. So it's also really take them through a real proper sieve,
Yeah.
to make sure you're exposing your children to the right examples of men
Yeah.
in their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah, so it's
agree.
possible to find them.
Yeah.
It's
possible
true.
to find
And I
them,
think that's
yeah.
why this episode, like the conversation about love and where it all began, goes back to like you're taking that time, all of that time to choose that person, because the stakes are really high.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like
yeah.
it's not just gonna be the two of you. So now after that, the fact that you're now becoming a family, you're becoming a unit, and you're gonna have to work at this thing and make it work. That's why you put in that much work at the
yeah.
beginning, because making the decision or letting it go
by
after
the end
that.
of the day, sometimes people say, you have such high standards. No wonder you're not bugging a man. You have such high, but you should.
Yeah.
Because like you said, the stakes are high. You should have them. And at the end of the day, that person who's telling you that, they're not going to live with this man.
It's you.
Or you're not going to live with this woman. You are the one who knows what, where the shoe fits. So if you're feeling like you can't be able to live with this now, you're not going to be able to live with this in 10 years. That's the truth. So you're better off walking away from it. Don't hold anybody ransom while you're looking for the next one. Walk away.
Yeah.
End it, walk away. Let everybody have equal opportunities to look elsewhere.
Yeah.
If you have any doubt in your mind that your heart is like, that doubt already is a red flag. I'm always like, don't ignore the red flags.
Listen to your
Most
heart.
of the times, even when you listen to people who've ended their marriages, they always say, these things were there, I just chose to ignore them. These things were there, I chose to ignore them. If it's a red flag now, if it's something that you can't live with,
For sure, yeah.
Just leave
And
it.
I'm not suggesting people should stay in bad marriages. I mean, there's no value in that. But I also feel that maybe we don't put enough effort in saving a savable marriage.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why,
Oh, yeah.
like, you
Oh,
keep
yeah.
coming back to therapy and
Yeah.
help and support.
Yeah.
I think those things are critical. But we currently don't live in a culture that's
Oh, yeah,
like
we're so
work
one foot
it
in, one foot in, one foot out. Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah. You have an exit plan as you're coming
From
in.
the
right,
beginning.
true, because you're still looking for
Yeah.
the one. There's the
Yeah.
actual one, and then there's this one who is just
They were
holding
just there.
space.
Actually, even I know
me.
it will sound very, very spiri, but even biblically, it says, "Delight in the husband or the wife of your youth." Like, accept the person as they are, because you're not perfect; they're not
Yes.
perfect. As long as you've done the major checks, they're not a
Yes.
harmful person. They're not
Right.
They're not terrible. They're not.
Thieves, they are
They're
not
not
all these
exactly
things.
all those
Yeah.
things.
And you
If
should
they're
be
not
able
those
to.
things,
Yeah.
and I think even in the times when I'm in great turmoil in the relationship, where I'm like, mimi sioni kama, I remember I always go back to but wait a minute, how did we come here? What was
Yeah.
my why? And when I go through that list, it sobers me up
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
But if you ask yourself that why, now it makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you do need to be in a good place as an adult, and I keep referencing you have to be an adult because that your decisions have consequences, and they're not just for you. Like we said, part of the challenge when a couple breaks up is that marriage does not belong to them. It's a community affair, right? And you've had friends who've split up, and you've experienced the loss like it was personal. Because you're invested in their relationship, you have formed friendships with their extensions. There are people who I know their mothers, their uncles. It extends beyond just you as a couple.
So Sophie, that's a whole discussion for another episode.
For another episode, so we'll bring it up.
We'll
but
bring
what
it
we
up.
are saying is,
Yeah.
look at it as it's not a game. It's fun. Marriage has its moments where you're like, oh, at least I have someone. But the other days you're like, if this someone can move out, it'd really be helping me.
Yeah.
Right?
So
Be serious and commit. Work at it. Be a grown up.
For sure.
Over to you, Melissa.
So that is the story of how we met.
The one.
The ones we keep choosing.
The ones we
to
are
be
with.
married to. And so I guess that was fun.
Last episode.
Last episode, guys. So we have a lot more moshene. We have a lot more stories. We have a lot more coming up in the next season.
Bringing in the
Please.
dads. Yeah, that was going to be fun.
There's a lot.
So you can hear the other side of the story.
It's the last episode and there's still a lot.
Yeah.
There's still a lot coming your way. So keep it tuned. We'll let you know when the next ones will be dropping. Follow us on our socials, Ninja Parenting KE on Instagram, Facebook, on Twitter, TikTok coming your way too. So please follow us on those channels. Spread the word to anybody who needs to listen to any of our episodes. Subscribe.
And let us know as
and
well.
just
Like
let
if there's
us
something
know.
that we should
Yeah.
cover, something you want to go deeper into. Just,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And if
Yeah,
there's
let
any
us know.
topic that touched your heart from any of the episodes, please let us know. Give us your feedback. It means so much. We're happy to, and we will address any of the things that if there's anything you want us to take a deep dive into, any topic, happy to do it. So we are really looking forward to your feedback. And don't forget to share. Share.
Yes, please.
Yeah, sharing is
It's scary.
and that's it from our first
Season.
Until the next
Well
one, this is Ninja Parenting.